Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another beautiful cold night in East Lake, Ohio. And you are on the Cleveland Sports 360 show with LG. LG, you know what? Take it away, buddy.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Our Cleveland Browns have just returned from a minor defeat in Kansas City, and I say minor because a lot of people were expecting a lot worse than what really happened. Jason Campbell led the Cleveland Browns yesterday, folks. They wondered why Campbell wasn't playing football in a Cleveland Browns uniform, and I tell you right now, it's because Jasinski and Norv Turner wanted to see what Brian Hoyer brought to the table, and he brought 2 victories, and he showed that this Cleveland Browns football team has some guys that can make some plays. You saw it yesterday with Jason Campbell. They used a little trickery with the flea flicker, and it scored a nice touchdown to Josh Gordon, who was streaking down the sidelines, and he got into the end zone. What a difference this would have made had Devon Best not screwed the pooch on the field in Arrowhead Stadium yesterday, folks. How Josh Gordon is not the most hated man in Cleveland today is beyond anybody's wildest imagination. We got a great show lined up tonight. We're going to feature this book right here, folks, Cleveland's Finest, by the author, Vince McKee. Vince is a Cleveland local guy. He wrote this book, Cleveland's Finest. It highlights all kinds of untold stories about Cleveland moments in sports. And there's been a lot of phenomenal moments here in Cleveland sports. This book highlights the best moments, players, media members, and in Cleveland sports history. It has an in-depth, extremely personal interviews with some top names in Cleveland sports. Each interview is a no-holds-barred tell-all to the most intimate and sometimes controversial details of the largest impact moments in our town's sports history. This is the first book written from the player's point of view, mixed with the media that covered it and the fans that watched it. How about that? They even included some fan excerpts in this book. You can get this book, Cleveland's Finest. Look on Amazon.com. Visit Amazon.com. Get yourself a copy of Cleveland's Finest. I tell you, Vince McKee wrote this book. It's less than $9. It's a great book. It's got quite a bit of interesting information in there throughout the history of Cleveland sports. Vince went out there. He did some great interviews with guys of the likes of Len Barker, who pitched a perfect game here in Cleveland. The Miracle of Richfield team, the Cavaliers back then, it was a phenomenal basketball team. I mean, there's all kinds of interesting things in this book. And like I said, you can find the book, Cleveland's Finest, on Amazon.com. But let's jump right into the Browns versus the Kansas City Chiefs. They traveled to Arrowhead Stadium, the loudest stadium in the NFL, and we saw all-pro tackle Joe Thomas. You know, I mean, come on. This is a guy that normally doesn't make mistakes. Even he screwed the pooch and cost the Browns a couple of key plays yesterday with a couple of false starts and a holding call and things of that nature. It was a tough day for the Cleveland Browns. Small mistakes cost them 70 yards on 9 different penalties throughout the football game. And this team still had the ball near the end with a chance to march down the field and get into the end zone to win this game. They couldn't do it. Thank you, Devon Best. You dropped the ball. It was a 4th down play. Kansas City took over on downs. But let's look at some of the highlights from the games, folks. We had Jason Campbell, Jason Campbell went 22 for 36, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns. He rushed the ball 3 times for 17 yards. That's a 5.7 average. That's more of an average than Trent Richardson has. And he's a running back. Josh Gordon had 5 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown yesterday. Cameron went 4 catches for 81 yards. Bess, this is the problem, folks. Bess had 3 catches for 27 yards, but he had 5 drops plus the fumble that probably cost the Cleveland Browns the chance to win the football game. Greg Little had 1 catch for 8 yards, another day of 2 drops. I don't know if you heard the news yet, folks, but Travis Benjamin is out for the rest of the season. He'll be joining quarterback Brian Hoyer to rehab his ACL. Benjamin's going to need surgery to have this thing repaired. It's a total loss for the Cleveland Browns special teams. Every time Travis Benjamin touched a football on a punt return, you never knew if this was going to be the one to light it up, and he was going to just get around that corner and break one loose for a touchdown. He made an impact on special teams for the Cleveland Browns. We got to wish Travis Benjamin all the best, and hopefully he'll come back stronger than ever next year. The Cleveland Browns should have their own ACL rehab unit in Berea pretty soon with Brian Hoyer and now Travis Benjamin out with torn ACLs. Joining us live on the phone lines, it's the author Vince McKee, Vince McKee, the author of Cleveland's Finest. As I told you before, it's a great book showing all kinds of different sports events throughout the history of Cleveland sports. Vince went out and got some great interviews, and Vince is a big-time Cleveland sports fan. Vince, are you with us, buddy?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on the show.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Vince. We got your book right here, man, Cleveland's Finest. I was going through it a little bit, and I seen you had Lenny Barker on there. We got a nice picture of you and your baby. I know you're at home taking care of the baby because your wife had to go back to work. How old is the baby now, Vince?
She's doing good. She just hit 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
And yeah, we got up to 10 pounds. She was born at 6 pounds 14 ounces, but she's been doing her push-ups every day, so we got up to 10 pounds. She's looking good.
What are you going to do, train her to be a punt returner or anything of that nature?
As long as she can hold on to the ball, I think she's probably better than half the guys we had back there yesterday.
Vince, before we get into the book, did you have a chance to catch the Browns yesterday?
Oh, I did. I was able to watch the whole game, and I thought they were encouraging there in the second half. I thought our defense was able to kind of pull it together. I was a little disappointed, obviously, in Devon Bess, but especially considering he's supposed to be a slot receiver, possession receiver, so that was very disappointing, but it was encouraging to see what Jason Campbell could do back there for a little bit.
Yeah, I was impressed with Campbell coming off the bench. Obviously, he didn't know he was going to get this start until Wednesday of last week, so he had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday a little bit to practice. Traveling to Kansas City obviously was an interruption to the Browns' regular practice schedule. And taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, this guy showed a lot of poise. Now, today, Chazinski, in his noon news conference, named Jason Campbell the quarterback who's going to start against the Baltimore Ravens. Vince, give us your take on how do you think Campbell can fare against this Ravens team that the Cleveland Browns had a shot to beat earlier this season?
I think he could do well. Baltimore's not creating the high amount of turnovers that they've been doing the last couple of years. And I think there's some holes in their defense that with Nerf Turner now the second time is going to face them. He should probably see some holes big enough to run through them. Obviously, that's no knock on Trent Richardson, but, when we had him, we didn't do anything. So now we got a new look from McKee, and, Gordon didn't play the first time around. So, we got some extra weapons, and what I personally feel is a better quarterback behind center. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, don't worry about knocking Trent Richardson on the Cleveland Sports 360 show because this is a truthful show, Vince, and we call a spade, if you know what I'm talking about. Not to take it in there, but a first round draft pick, third overall. This guy's a bust out in LG's opinion. He goes to Indianapolis. He hasn't fared much better than he did here in the Cleveland Browns football team. The Browns pulled one over on Jim Irsay. We're lucky to get a first-round pick. I don't care what number pick it is in the first round. We are very fortunate to get a first-round pick for Trent Richardson. What's your take on that, Vince?
I agree, and I'll be honest about it. I was a little upset at first, thinking, what did we just do? But then again, like I say, sometimes hindsight's 20/20, and have looked better without him. He hasn't done much since he's been there, and he's had more weapons around him, and he's still struggling. So again, there's 16 games in every season. We'll see what happens. But at this point, a year and a half into his career, he does look like a bust. B-U-S-T bust.
Yeah, when you look at guys like Morris from the Redskins, you look at the guy that's out with the shoulder injury down in Florida. These guys were big impacts right away in the NFL, man. And Trent Richardson, you can use the excuse, well, the Browns' offensive line. Well, I got to tell you, this offensive line did a hell of a job against the number one pass rush defense in the NFL yesterday. They protected Campbell. He only took 1 sack in the game, Vince. And if you want my opinion, Campbell walked his way into that sack because he just dropped back out of the pocket just a little too far, and the guy coming around the corner really got to Campbell's. But other than that, this offensive line did an outstanding job providing pass protection yesterday, don't you think?
I agree. Kansas City was going to blitz them, see what they had, but for the most part, they hung tough. I think there was a couple offsides calls there in the fourth quarter that they missed, in all honesty, because it seemed like they were getting more of a jump than they should, but I think we held tough.
Yeah, we did. We really did. So, obviously, today, Chazinski kind of silenced the rumors, Vince, about the Josh Gordon trade rumors. And again, this is the coach telling you that Cameron and Gordon are definitely not on the trade blocks. What's your opinion if the Browns would pull off a trade by the deadline tomorrow with Josh Gordon? That would pretty much end the Cleveland Browns' competitiveness for the 2013 season. Don't you agree?
I agree. I don't believe him when he said there's no chance of a trade either. I think there is, quite frankly. I think they're not going to be honest about that. They don't want to tip their cards. But as far as Gordon goes, it's so tough. It's so tough because you can look at it both ways. I don't think it's worth the risk sometimes if he has one strike away. Because he kind of had one strike on him, obviously, when he came into the pros, and that should have been enough to steer him straight. So it makes you wonder. It makes you worry. And, he's got to stay away from the purple drink.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he learned his lesson. I mean, some of these guys, you look at it in the Denver Broncos with Von Miller bribing the guy that comes to give the drug test. And that's, these guys got a lot of nerve. They're making millions of dollars a year. And obviously you've been able to get up close and personal with some famous athletes doing your book, Cleveland's Finest. So you can understand some of these guys' mentalities and some of the older guys that you interviewed for your book, Cleveland's Finest. They probably weren't as cocky as these young guys are today. They think it's owed to them. Did you ever get that when you were doing the book, Vince?
Absolutely, and that's what makes the book great. Guys like Joe Charbonneau, who just had one really good year under the sun, and never took it for granted. And he'll tell you how much that 1 year meant to him and the Cleveland fans. And he was honest with his interview in the book, and that's what makes it compelling. Because he talks about the low salary that he was given, and that he had a single mom he wanted to provide for, and he did things for the true love of the game. He never did them for the money, but he did them for the true love of the game. And there's a guy who's going to be bitter about it years later, and he's not. And that's something that makes him important. And that's the gripping part of this book, is that the stories that I've never told before, told from a different angle. There's a lot of guys in the media today, in the press that think they know it all, but they never actually, spend the time with some of these guys like I have to do. And, not just know them as athletes, but know them as a person. And that's the thing. As Mike Hargrove would say the same thing, as I found in Mike Hargrove.
Hey, Vince.
For people.
Vince, I don't know if you changed the way you were talking on your telephone or put it on a speakerphone or something, but it's not picking you up real well. Can you go back to how you were talking before?
Oh, yeah. I'm sitting in the same spot. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's perfect right there.
Oh, okay.
It was cutting in and out a little bit just a second or two ago. But,
I was standing on my head.
In about a minute, we're going to take a commercial break, Vince. We got to pay the bills, but I hope you'll hold on, and we'll come back and get more into the book, Cleveland's Finest. But going into next week, when the Baltimore Ravens come to the Cleveland Browns Stadium, which is now First Energy Stadium, what do you see the chances of the Cleveland Browns pulling off a win here, Vince?
I think they're strong. I think we're going to upset them, and I think we're going to go into the break 4-5. Baltimore's ripe for a fall.
I agree. I think we could pull off a victory. I thought we could have pulled off the victory in Kansas City yesterday, and if you take some key mistakes out of that game, Vince, I think we would have came home with a victory yesterday, and we probably could have hit the bye week with a 500 record. That would have been something, huh?
Oh, I agree completely.
Yeah, so, okay, Vince, hang on. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a little commercial break, and we're going to come back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We got Vince McKee on the phone, author of Cleveland's Finest. You can pick up a copy of the book for less than $9 at Amazon.com. Cleveland's Finest. We'll be right back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show and author Vince McKee right after these messages.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 with your host, LG, and we are talking with Vince McKee, the author of Cleveland's Finest. And as LG will tell you, you can pick this book up on Amazon.com. LG, take it away.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. On the phone live with us this evening is Vince McKee, the author of the book Cleveland's Finest. I know it's hard to believe, but there has been some fine moments in Cleveland sports. Vince, you still with us, buddy?
Yes, sir, right here.
Hey, that's great, man. We can hear you real good, too. So, Vince, tell us, what inspired you to go in search of the Cleveland Finest and put this book together, man?
Well, I've always been a big reader of sports books, and the one thing I noticed, unfortunately, is that there's a lot of books about the Cleveland misery that we've had. And that's more or less what you see on national media as well. And I got sick and tired of it. So basically, the first book I wrote was called Hero. It was an inspirational tale about coaching Little League baseball, and it sold well. And because all that happened, I was given the opportunity to go ahead and write another book. So I took my love of Cleveland sports, and I combined it with my hatred towards us from the national media and books against us. And I figured what we needed was a book discussing the finer moments of Cleveland sports history. And then I went a step further, and I tracked down all the guys from these moments because I wanted to tell the story, but I wanted them to help tell the story. You know, I could sit here all day long and tell you about the 1995 Cleveland Indians, magical season, and I did my best to do that. But you know what? Mike Hargrove, John Hart, Carlos Baerga, they did a little bit better job, and I was able to interview them, and the book is in their words, and it's just immaculate.
Now let me ask you, when you talk to Carlos Baerga, and we got a picture of you and Carlos together, it looks like you're sitting in the Indians clubhouse. Were you able to understand what the hell he was saying?
Yeah, it took a little while, and I had my trusty tape recorder with me, so when it came back to having to, relay that information into the book, I had listened to it a couple times, but all joking aside, Carlos was a great guy. He was honest about the trade that brought him here, and he was also honest about his relationship with John Hart, the way it used to be and the way it is today. And again, you're not going to get that story anywhere else. The true story of why Carlos Baerga was traded, you hear it out of John Hart's mouth, and then you hear it out of Carlos' mouth, and then Mike Hargrove kind of puts it all together.
Well, give us a little insight to this story now that you brought it up, because I don't even think I'm that familiar with it. I haven't had time to sit down and read the book yet.
Well, in the 1995 playoffs, Carlos Baerga hurt his ankle, and by doing that, he came into the 1996 season a little sluggish. But he talks about he kind of lost a little bit of the desire to play. He let a little bit of the fame get to him, and it was complicated because he was actually good friends with John Hart. John Hart talks about after the 1995 championship series against Seattle, John Hart's wife and Carlos Baerga actually did a merengue down the hallway. They were that tight together, the three of them. So the next year when John Hart had to pull that trigger to trade Carlos, it was a little bit extra emotional for him than it would be trading a normal player. And then you have to listen to how Mike Hargrove describes it as well, that, these players, you could get attached to them, but they're all interchangeable parts. And he talks about that really in depth after Albert Bell left, at the end of the 96 season, and then the trade that they pulled to send Lofton away for Justice and Grissom. And, Hargrove goes into detail about that, about how they weren't just getting, they weren't trading away Kenny Lofton for Joe Smo, but they were trading away Kenny Lofton for, highly talented ball players. And he goes into deep detail, the meetings, and I don't want to give it away, because I want people to buy the book. But Hargrove and John Hart go into deep detail about what was said behind closed doors with Dick Jacobs. And it's stunning, some of the stuff they told me.
Well, let me ask you, was all that Carlos Baerga was doing with John Hart's wife is the merengue, that there was nothing else involved with that trade?
From the information I've been given, yes.
Good. I just want to make...
From the information that they print.
You know how some of these women fall for these guys with the foreign accents. You know what I'm talking about, Vince?
Absolutely.
Because we heard the stories way back with Rick Manning and Dennis Eckersley. There was a lot of talk about somebody doing something to somebody else's wife was the real reason Eckersley ended up in California, from what I understood. I can't prove it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed.
Yeah, so there you have it. Vince McKee, the author. Now, Vince, with the name McKee, you're not related to a Bob McKee, are you?
I do have an uncle, Bob, out in Las Vegas, yes.
Okay, because there was a Bob McKee in Cleveland that was a famous drummer, believe it or not, man.
Wow, that would not be me. I don't think there's a musical bone in my body.
Hey, you got to type up these books, so you might have some kind of rhythm coming out of your soul. So, Vince, talk about the Cleveland Finest. What was your finest moment while you were putting the book Cleveland Finest together, which you folks can find on Amazon.com?
Craig Elo. I'll tell you a couple stories. The better moments, I'll tell you, is Craig Elo went into deep detail about his entire career playing for Lenny Wilkins, as did Larry Nance. They talked about their relationship behind closed doors. Now, as I'm interviewing Craig Elo, I had it written all over my notepad. Don't ask him about the shot. Don't ask him about the shot, because I figured the guy had been asked about it a million times. So we go to close out the interview, and he says, "Well, why aren't you going to ask me about the shot? I'd like to talk about it." I said, "Okay." I'm like, "If you're cool with it," and then he goes into detail all over it, and then he ends up crying on the phone, and I'm like, "This is just, it was crazy." So that was a little thing. That was, I just don't even have the words for it. You know, it took me back a little bit. But he was humble about everything. And he tells a story in the book about 20 years later, his son Austin met Michael Jordan, and the conversation they had. And again, I'm not going to give it away. It's in the book, but it's pretty stunning, pretty crazy what he reveals. You know, Jordan told his son years later. So there's things like that. There's Mike Hargrove discussing, you know, how he felt with the LFL's torque bat, and then when Boston tried to confiscate it in Game 1 of the playoffs, and you know, his verbiage toward Kennedy, the manager for Boston. He dropped a couple 4-letter bombs, but it was honest and it was raw, and I printed it. You know, that's the one thing this book has is, you know, no cover up, no white out. It's the real raw emotions of the players, and again, it's something that's never been in print before. Terry Pluto didn't have enough guts to print it. I did.
Well, there you have it. It's the truth. And I tell you what, if you've ever watched the Cleveland Sports 360 show, we have a propensity to tell the truth here. Whether people like it or not, that's the way we roll here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. So it's a real pleasure to have you on tonight, Vince. Of all the guys that you interviewed for the Cleveland Finest, the book, you're telling me Craig Elo was your finest moment?
No, I would have to say my finest moment probably came sitting in Joe Charbonneau's apartment with them, having some beers, and playing with the Zog Maverick, because that was probably the most relaxed interview that I did. But, I mean, it really is a toss-up, because there were so many gems in there. I mean, Larry Nance was just one of a kind, and the guy's a class act. And,
yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Larry Nance when I was doing some freelance work for Cleveland's TV 20. He was at a race car show out there at the North Randall Mall. And,
right, and he talks about that in the book.
Yeah, he's big time into the race car. But, boy, what a tall guy, huh, Vince? We got a picture of Larry Nance standing next to you. And, man.
And I was standing on a set of books there, and I still couldn't look decent.
Yeah, well, when I was standing next to him, I had the microphone in my hand. I was standing on the ground next to him, and my arm was fully extended to get the mic up to his mouth, believe it or not, man. And I'm 6'1".
You're a pretty tall guy.
Right.
I'm just a short little Italian.
I was like, wow, this guy's really tall. I mean, you know, when you see him out there on the court and he's standing next to all the other players, he's tall, but when you're standing next to him and nobody else that's that tall around you, you really get an inspiration about how tall this guy really is. And he is one tall guy, don't you think, man?
Oh, yeah. I was taken back by that as well, because you think something, and then like you said, you meet him in person, and you're like, oh, my God, this guy's even bigger than I thought.
Even when you've been down there courtside and stuff, like I said, when they're walking around with all the other tall guys, you know, and you see a short guy in the NBA, he's still 6'1" or 6'2", you know?
Absolutely.
But when these other guys are 7'2", what is Nance? Do you remember? Was he 7'2", wasn't he?
He's about 6'10", but he just has a presence about him.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I thought he was over 7 feet, to tell you the truth. But
well, I'm hoping to get him out to the book signing at Stampers on November 19th, and hopefully if Larry's there, I think we could all, stand next to him and do like one group measuring the pitcher.
Get J-Rock over there from the Sports Fix. That's another guy that will make Larry Nance look even taller. But tell us, you got a book signing coming up. Tell us where it is, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. We got some of the guys coming out. It's going to be November 19th at Stampers in Fairview. It's on Lorraine Road. They do a great job. We packed the place last year. We did a signing for Hero, and we had a line out the door. We sold it out. So this is going to be Cleveland's Finest. It's the official opening book signing. It's going to be November 19th. We're looking at about 7 o'clock. We're going to go from 7 to 9, but people are probably going to want to get there early, about 6 o'clock, 6:30, because there's going to be a line out the door. We're trying to get as many big names from the book to be there. I'm already committed. Greg Brinda, Jerry Myers, Fred McLaurin, and a few others. Obviously, Larry and Nance, if his family commitments will allow him. Craig Elo's got some legal trouble right now, so we might need to make him a cake with a file on it to get him out here. But it's going to be a blast. They got great drink specials there. I'll have all the books ready. The athletes will sign them. Media members will sign them. And it's going to be a blast. And, Larry, I want to do something special for you. Here's what I want to do. Books that night, because we've got to get them shipped in and signed and everything, are going to be about $20 each. However, if somebody comes up to me that night and says, I heard you on Cleveland Sports 360, I'm dropping it 10% off, and I'm going to sell it to you for the Amazon price of $10.
How about that, folks? Just tell them you heard it here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Hey, give it one more time, Vince, and be real clear about the name of this place, man.
Sure, it's Stampers. It's going to, like you would stamp on something, so it's
Stampers.
Stamp.
Stampers.
Yeah, Stampers.
On Lorraine Road.
Fairview Park on Lorraine Road.
Okay. They got good food there?
Yeah, they got great food, and there's going to be a giant cardboard cutout of Larry Lickin out front. So people can look for that.
I think that'll scare people away, Vince. You're giving me too much credit here, man. Hey, buddy, hang with us, Vince. We got to take another commercial break. We'll be right back with Vince McKee, author of Cleveland's Finest. You can find it on Amazon.com. Get up there, buy the book. What the heck? You read about some good inspirational stories. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you can take it, get to Amazon.com. Find yourself a copy of Cleveland's Finest. We'll be right back with Vince McKee right here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show with your host, LG. LG, come on, take it away, buddy.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Our special on-the-phone guest tonight is none other than Vince McKee, the author of Cleveland's Finest. It's some of the best moments in sports history told by the athletes themselves, told by the media members that were around back in those days. And it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And Vince McKee would not lie. He wrote it word for word as these guys put it on the table for him. Isn't that right, Vince?
Absolutely. The one thing we wanted to do was have it be the most real thing ever written about Cleveland sports. And when people pick up this book, it's going to blow their mind with the stuff that they read, the stuff that Lenny Barker tells you. Joe Charbonneau, the different stories from the road and things of that nature. And then it's got some hidden gems, Larry. It's got some hidden gems that people kind of not really focused on over the years, but they were important in the structure of Cleveland. Teams such as the Cleveland Crunch. We done with Hector Bernero and Otto Orff and all the guys from the Crunch, and we talked about the 4 years, how they brought the championship to Cleveland, and the excitement of that. I talked with my grandfather, Joe, who's 80 years old, and he gave me play-by-play feedback of the 1945 Cleveland Rams championship game before they left. And then, obviously, Paul Brown came in when he became the Browns. And he talks about, being a little boy during those years when the Browns were dominant every year. And then the 1948 Cleveland Indians World Series championship run. And then the Cleveland Barons, the original Cleveland Barons hockey team.
I don't want to give my age out, Vince, but I actually used to go down and watch the Cleveland Barons play at the old Cleveland Arena.
Absolutely, it was oval, and he was saying they used to smoke. People would smoke cigarettes in there, and there'd be
absolutely
a big cloud of smoke, and it was no big deal.
And there was a strip joint right next door.
Absolutely.
I remember that was a big thing for us kids. We'd walk out of the old Cleveland Arena and we could look in the windows of the strip joint. It was kind of, it was kind of nice.
You were hoping to catch a glimpse. I understand.
Hey, Vince, what this book would... I'm sorry I didn't get this to you before you printed this book, but a picture of LG's Whedon be gone, huh? Tell me that wouldn't have been a back cover, huh?
I think it would have been perfect.
Yeah,
we struggled to find a good back cover, but that would have been perfect.
The Whedon be gone, man. That's a classic, don't you think?
Well, what's going to happen in a couple of weeks if Jason Campbell breaks his ankle? Then what the hell are you going to do? Can you possibly go back to Brandon Whedon again?
Well, let's hope in a couple of weeks Jason Campbell doesn't break his ankle. I wrote a story, a couple articles. I asked people to get on their knees every night and pray that nothing happens to Jason Campbell, because the last thing that the fans of the city of Cleveland need is to see Brandon Whedon step foot onto that football field ever again. That's what I got to tell you, man. You got to admit, Chazinski's handling the whole situation very professionally. He's saying that Brandon Whedon is under development.
Yeah, in a way he is. I mean, I think they were trying to give him every chance. I hate to say they were hoping for him to fail so it would be easier to pull, but I don't know. It still concerns me how they handled everything in training camp, saying that it was an open competition, even though it really wasn't. If you knew Hoyer was the guy right from the start, why don't you go with him game one and go for the juggler right off the bat?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Vince. The way I look at it is, like Chud said today, one of the very first questions he was asked at his noon press conference was the fact, why did you even start Brandon Whedon? And his answer was, we didn't know what we had with Brandon Whedon. We really didn't know that much about him. Now, it's amazing that a guy like Chazinski and Norv Turner didn't sit down and watch a bunch of game films from last year to see what they had with Whedon and all the other Cleveland Browns players that came back from last season. There's quite a few of them, man.
That's ignorant. That's a complete... that's either a bold-faced lie or stupidity in its purest form. If they didn't sit back and watch the guy's game tape of 15 games, that's just ridiculous. You knew what you were getting.
Well, maybe he's telling the truth, and maybe the Cleveland Browns ended up sending those game films to the Poison Control Center in case anybody ever ingested any poisoning. They used the Brandon Whedon game film to induce vomiting.
Well, that would probably work. I mean, that's probably right up there with the macaque.
Yeah. That's what you got to do, man. So, Vince, what do you got in the works now, man? Now that you got 2 books out there on the market, is there plans for a 3rd?
Well, right now I have a lot of diapers that need changing, some formula that I have to buy, and I'll probably have to pick up a second job here pretty soon. But no, all joking aside, I think I'm going to focus on being a dad for a little bit. But, it's funny because after my first book, Hero, came out, I told my wife at the time, and this is before we knew she was pregnant, I said, I think I'm going to take about a year off before I write again. And then it wasn't another week until I was downstairs in my office, itching away at this project. And Joe Tate called me up on the phone. I'll never forget it. I was talking with Joe, and he's like, you know what Cleveland needs? He's like, we need a book about the better moments in Cleveland sports. He's like, not all these negative books. And talking with Joe that night, I was like, you know what? He's right. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and we ran with it. So I'm guessing probably the same thing again. I'm probably going to take a few weeks off. I had an idea for a baseball book, strictly about the Indians. You know, and two summers away, it's going to be the 20-year anniversary of the '95 Trop, which is really the most memorable innings in my personal generation. So I'd like to, you know, maybe do something with that. Use my connections with Hargrove and area, and maybe talk to John Hart again, and you know, see what we can do. Maybe get a bunch of guys from the team together, and you know, book together.
Well, let me ask your opinion on something. Is baseball one of your favorite sports, or you just really enjoy the Cleveland Indians? What's your favorite sports out of the three? Baseball. I could tell by the way you said you were going to do a Indians book. Let me ask your opinion on something now. We just saw the Mickey Callaway effect on the Cleveland Indians starting pitching rotation, and I was fortunate enough to have Mickey on my show a couple of weeks back. He was a great interview. If you want to go back and listen to that show, you can find it on YouTube, Vince. It was a great 40 minutes, I think, we spent with Mickey Callaway, the Tribe's pitching coach. But obviously they got a lot of thinking to do. What are your thoughts as far as will the Indians be able to retain the services of Ubaldo Jimenez?
I think it's crucial that we do, and even 6 months ago, I probably wouldn't have said that. But the combination of what Mickey Callaway was able to do with him, help resurrect Scott Kazmir, I think it's important that we can get Jimenez back because I'm not sure Trevor Bauer's ready just yet for the rotation. He was real shaky this season, so I think what they need to do, it would be good to get Jimenez back, but also I'd say start the year with Danny Salazar, take him off any kind of pitch count, just let him throw, and then from there focus on adding a couple more bats to that lineup. I really liked what I saw out of Yan Gomes. I think he should get the most improved player in baseball this year. But, you know, Carlos Santana still concerns me. He's very inconsistent. He's a liability behind the plate, so having Gomes where he's at behind the plate defensively, I like that. Maybe, you know, have Santana work on his first base skills, and also Chisenhall. Chisenhall looked real good in that one-game wild card playoff, and he looked streaky throughout the rest of the season. So they got to get the corners down. I like our middle infield. I think Cabrera gratefully underplayed this year, but if he could piece it together, we'd have something until Lindor's ready. But if not, I'd say call up Lindor now and let's see what we got.
Well, there's a lot of talk on the table about getting rid of Cabrera, and I wish they didn't get rid of Cabrera, but obviously something's going to be coming up with him. But my main concern right now is we got a great pitcher with Ubaldo Jimenez, and it was the Cleveland Indians that were able to straighten this guy out. Mechanically, he looks sound. Are the Cleveland Indians going to be able to put enough money on the table to keep Jimenez in a Cleveland Indians uniform, Vince? What's your thought?
I'd probably say a bake sale. Raise money, you know, lemonade stand, bake sale, maybe a car wash. Whatever you got to do. I'll go off things. Whatever it takes.
That's good, Vince. I like that answer, man. So you'll be on the street corner selling lemonade to raise funds to keep Ubaldo in a Cleveland Indians uniform, huh?
I'll tell you what, even if I have to go out there and shave my legs, whatever gets cars to stop. You know?
I think it's going to be a shame if we do lose Ubaldo Jimenez. I think it's going to leave a giant hole in the starting rotation that we can't fill, man.
I agree. I really do. You know, it's fun to joke around about it, but it's we got to get that mentality back of having a number one and a number two solid. And I think with Jimenez and Masterson, we would have that. And I think they showed last year, maybe because Fox purchased and gave them a bunch of money, I don't know, but they did show that they were willing to spend a little bit. And if we could, you know, ante up and keep Jimenez and have Masterson as the two, I think things would fall into place, you know, underneath them, I guess I could say. But I really like what I saw of the Danny Salazar in the short amount we got.
Well, don't forget that how much money you think we got left from that Fox deal, Vince?
I don't know. I think Larry Dolan's going to have to check his car ashtray and see what's left. See what's in there.
Vince, what nights are you performing down at Hilarities? I'm going to come down and check you out, man.
Well, I don't know. I do have a job where I'm on the phone, but, you know, it's really usually $2.99 for the first minute and 99 cents for every additional. I haven't really made it to the big stage just yet.
Well, hey, maybe you could get that published and you could get some people and raise some funds to keep Jimenez in Cleveland.
There's your third book.
There you
right
go.
there. There's your third book. We just hit it tonight on the LG show right there. Cleveland Sports 360 breaking news story.
You're right. We'll get that out on the market. But, Vince, hang on. We're going to take the last break. We're going to come right back with Vince McKee, the author of Cleveland's Finest. You can find it on Amazon.com. Get on your computers right after the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Look it up on Amazon.com. Cleveland's Finest by author Vince McKee. We'll be right back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show right after this break.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back again to Cleveland Sports 360 show with your host, LG. LG, take it away.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Joining us live on the phone lines is none other than Vince McKee, author of Cleveland's Finest, some of the finest moments told by the athletes, the media personnel, you name it, they're included in this book, the coaches, everybody from behind the scenes. You got to get a copy of this book. If you can't find it on Amazon.com, you're not looking hard enough. Go to Amazon.com, look for Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee, or you can go right to the Cleveland Sports 360 website, look for the Vince McKee article we put up for tonight's show. Click on the book itself inside the article or the link that will take you directly to Amazon.com to make a purchase of Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee. Vince, you still with us?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm right here.
Hey, that's good, man. This is it, the last quarter. So, Vince, I got an idea for the next book. It could be Broken-Hearted Clevelanders by this time tomorrow night, couldn't it?
Very well could be.
Let's talk about it, man. The trade deadline. What time is it all over, Vince? Do you have any idea?
I think it's 5 o'clock. I think it's end of business.
So end of business day tomorrow. Hopefully the Cleveland Browns will still have a Josh Gordon, a Jordan Cameron in the Browns uniform. Wouldn't that be a nice thing?
It'd be real nice, but during the break I was looking at the internet, and it turns out that there's a hot trade rumor right now. As you know, the Patriots are in desperate need of a receiver. And I read something that it's going to be Devon Best going over to the Patriots. And in return, we're supposed to get a ping pong table and 2 high schoolers.
A ping pong table and 2 what?
2 high school kids.
2 high school kids. Yeah, that's about right.
Shipping at the car wash. So really, it's a unit effort of both sports teams.
That's funny, Vince. That's really funny, man. I don't even know if anybody would want Devon Best after the performance that he put on yesterday. Vince, do you ever get a chance to interview any of these kind of guys like a Devon Best? I mean, what the hell happens to a guy that is noted for not dropping the football? How does he all of a sudden end up showing up like he did yesterday? Do you have any clues?
Well, they said that he was hanging out with Jose Mason. He got some slippery fingers. But I don't know all the details on that story.
That's funny, man. That is...
Actually, Mike Hargrove does talk about Jose Mason, Game 7, in the book. He talks about they were telling Mesa to throw the inside fastball or throw the slider outside, and he was refusing to do so, and he was living on anything else, and that's why he got ate up. And there's a lot of stories behind, in the book, what happened after Game 7, what Dick Jacobs did to all the players as they were walking down the Pro Players Stadium, and it's kind of all the emotions. And again, it kind of all brings it back to Cleveland's finest because we talk about all the greatest moments, and we let the players do it themselves. But we did touch on that 97 World Series just because I thought it was important for the readers to get it from a different angle. And if there was one reason you were looking to buy this book, it's that reason right there. Is you're going to get the true stories told from the people who live it, not the people from the press box, but the people who were there.
Now, not only can they buy this book, but they can show up at Stompers on November 19th out there on Lorraine Avenue and meet a lot of people and see Vince McKee live and in the flesh, and you'll sign the book for them too, wouldn't you, Vince?
Absolutely. Like I said, $20 gets you a book. If you say, you heard me on Cleveland Sports 360, we'll give it to you for $10. And if you say that you went on my Facebook and I have a very adorable little girl, I will not only sign your book, but I'll let her sign it as well. She's been working on her penmanship.
10 weeks old, and you're teaching her how to write already, huh, Vince?
She's ready.
Unbelievable, though, huh? Is this your first child, Vince?
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm pretty excited. It's my first, and we didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl, so it was a surprise. I'm happy with the girl. She's going to be great. And, it's funny because we talked about the third book. The second book, I started writing the night I found out my wife was pregnant. It was, it was almost like a little sign from God, to kind of get off my butt. Had that conversation with Joe Tate, and it just kind of seemed like all the, signs were pointing towards a different book. So it was a magical 9-month run. The 9 months my wife was pregnant, Maggie, was the same 9 months. I met all the athletes, did all the interviews, and wrote the book. And it's an incredible journey. I got to meet people like yourself, the Big Daddy of Destruction, J-Rock, and people I've always wanted to meet. So it was just a thrill.
Yeah, I noticed you had a nice excerpt in the book about Jerry Myers from the Sports Fix. Obviously, J-Rock Daddy is doing sports like no other here in the city of Cleveland. You can catch the Sports Fix show weekdays from noon to 1 p.m. I think it might even be noon till 1:30 p.m. On the Sports Fix. thesportsfix.net Monday through Friday, and you can come out and join Jerry Meyer and myself every Sunday throughout the Browns season when the Browns are playing at the Hairy Buffalo in North Olmsted. Vince frequents the joint once in a while when he can get out of his babysitting duties. We missed you yesterday, Vince. We really thought we were going to pull off a win in Kansas City, and it's too bad you had babysitting duties or baptism duties or whatever. But you got to do new things when you're a new parent, man, and that changed your whole life a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, it did for the better. And yesterday we had baptism class, which is different in itself because, that's a topic for a different book. But basically it was what I like to call common sense class.
Right.
I've been, not to get religious on the show, but I've been Catholic my whole life. I know what baptism is about. So for us to have to go to these classes is just ridiculous. But, again, that's a story for a fourth book.
Yeah, we'll get it out there one of these days, Vince. Maybe you could write on this new pope that's busting all these guys spending all the money in the Catholic Church. You know what I mean?
There's corruption at every level of religion. It's just insane. See, that's the book someone needs to write. Not to get off the whole sports topic, but just charities in general. I mean, I'm a strong believer in donating money to charity. I try to donate as much as possible whenever I can. But it does concern me when we have these natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sandy, and then you have all these relief efforts, and then you find out, 6 weeks later that, 2 of them or 10 of them were scams.
Right.
And then, who the heck do you trust anymore? And that's the thing. You need somebody with a set of balls big enough to write a book about the truth.
Well, that's where I.
We don't have a cure.
I've had the opportunity to help a few families in need this last year, and I got to tell you, raising funds is not an easy thing. But when you do give to LG, you can bet your bottom dollar that not only does your money go to these families in need, but quite a few of LG's money goes to these families in need too. Because when you set a goal up to try to do something, unfortunately, it's hard to do in the first place, and you always fall short, so LG always has to dig deep and come up with the balance. Hey, but that's what we do. We try to help everybody out. Just think what a great world we'd live in, Vince. So, Vince, we got a couple minutes left. We really want to thank you for being on the Cleveland Sports 360 show, and we're going to let you just tell people one more time. You're going to be at Stompers November 19th. What time?
It's going to be from 7 to 9 o'clock.
Okay, folks, there you have it. Stompers on Lorraine Avenue. Get out there from 7 to 9 o'clock. It's where?
It's called Stampers.
Stampers.
Like you would
Stampers.
put a stamp on an envelope.
Yeah, Stampers. And what city is that in? Fairview Park?
Yeah, that's in Fairview Park. I was wondering if I could just get 1 more minute. I just want to say one more thing.
Absolutely. You got the last couple minutes. It's all yours, Vince.
Thank you, sir. I just want to, number one, first and foremost, thank yourself for letting me on your show. It's an honor.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Sure, and it's my pleasure, trust me. I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for giving me the opportunity to even write a book, let alone be on shows such as these. And the one message I want to get across to everybody tonight, which is very important, is that Cleveland's been under a lot of fire for a long time. Our sports teams have been ridiculed. Our fans have been ridiculed. And this book has a possibility to change it. There's people right now at ESPN Radio that have this book. There's people right now that at ESPN Television that have this book. People at Fox Sports that have this book. We did our homework at Cleveland's Finest. We sent it out to everybody who could have some sort of say-so and change in the way the national media looks at Cleveland. And now I need you, the listener, the fan, the reader, to do your part. Go out today, buy a book for yourself, buy a book for your neighbor, buy a book for your friend. The more books we sell for Cleveland's Finest, we could change the way the nation views Cleveland. Enough is enough. I don't want to hear about the decision. I don't want to hear about the shot. And I don't want to hear about the drive anymore. What I want to hear about is Cleveland's Finest. And you have the power. Go to your computer, spend the $9, buy the book. Come out to Stampers, get your book signed. You have the power right now to change the way the nation looks at Cleveland. Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Straight from the man's mouth who wrote the book, Cleveland Finest, Vince McKee. Get on Amazon.com. Hey, $9, Vince. What the hell? That's not nothing. I mean, you could go to a bar and spend $9 on drinks in no time, and what do you have to show for it? This way you get yourself a copy of the finest sports moments in the history of Cleveland sports, written all in this paperback book by author Vince McKee. Vince, thanks a lot for showing up tonight and coming on to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We wish you nothing but the best, and good luck getting this book out there, and good luck changing the media's perspective of this mistake on the lake that no longer should take that title.
Larry, thanks for having me on. One last thing before I forget. Actually, two things. One, real quick, the night at Stampers, if you're there, you are more than welcome to come sit on stage with all the boys. And number two, I close out every interview with this. Yo, Maggie, Daddy did it.
You gotta train for 10,000 rounds to write a book like this, folks. Hey, Vince, have a great night, man. That's it. Vince McKee, author of Cleveland's Finest. You can find it on Amazon.com. Don't be afraid. Get on there. Spend the $9. Get this book. Change the way that people view Cleveland sports. We are not the mistake on the lake anymore. The river hasn't caught fire in years, and we're coming back, folks. We're making a big comeback. This Cleveland Browns team, click here, LG is predicting a win next Sunday over the Ratbirds from Baltimore. Until then, we'll see you. Have a good week. Don't forget tomorrow night, 6 p.m., it's Jeff Leaf in the You Gotta Be Frickin' Kidding Me show right here, streamingsportstalk.com.